The unforgiving truth of existence is that the world rarely plays by the rules of fairness. It does not matter how deeply honest your soul is, there will always be someone waiting in the shadows to betray your trust. It does not matter how exceptionally skilled you become in your craft, someone with far fewer qualifications will eventually attempt to take your place. That is the harsh nature of reality. However, those who truly comprehend this unforgiving landscape do more than just survive, they ascend. And those who survive the chaos are the ones who eventually rule over it. This is a form of power that remains invisible to the naked eye, yet every person in the room can feel its weight. This is what we call dark intelligence. Dark intelligence is not born in comfort. It is forged in the fires of betrayal, humiliation, and defeat. While others crumble under the pressure of these experiences, you use the pain as raw material to construct an unshakable strength. It is a specific breed of intellect that observes intently, listens deeply, remains silent, and strikes only when the moment is absolutely perfect. While the masses waste energy arguing, you are quietly gathering critical data. While they lose themselves in anger, you are cold in your calculations. While they drown in a sea of unchecked emotions, you are meticulously planning the future. While the vast majority of society is busy playing a simple game of checkers, you are preparing to master the grand strategy of chess. But before we descend deeper into this rabbit hole, let me be crystal clear about the intention here. This knowledge is designed for protection, never for destruction. You must use these tools to defend yourself against the wolves, not to become a predator who harms the innocent. The ultimate objective is to understand the game so you don't become a pawn, not to become the villain of the story. Today, on Psych Solace, you're going to discover the 8 psychological traits that distinguish survivors from victims, leaders from followers, and absolute winners from those who lose. Right now, I want you to leave this affirmation in the comments section below to seal your intention. I choose to be strategically intelligent, not emotionally reactive. Now, let us unlock the secrets that powerful individuals do not want you to possess. Number 1. Calculated opacity. You must never be completely transparent about your true intentions. You must display only what is strictly necessary for the moment. When people only know half of the story, their brains instinctively fill in the blanks with their own imagination. And that imagination, that is what controls them. Machiavelli famously noted that everyone sees what you appear to be, but very few ever get to experience who you actually are. Consider the most intriguing and charismatic people you have ever met. They never dump their entire life story on you. They deliberately leave gaps in their narratives. When you ask them a question, they often answer with a question of their own. They offer a smile when you expect a detailed explanation. This is not about lying or being deceitful. This is about strategic communication. Here is what typically occurs in the average conversation. Someone asks a probing question, and you feel a social obligation to provide a complete, detailed dossier of an answer. You explain your deepest motivations, your hidden fears, and your future plans. You believe you're being honest and building trust, but in reality, you're handing over your power on a silver platter. Intelligent individuals understand that mystery is the bedrock of influence. When you withhold parts of the picture, people become curious. Curiosity evolves into interest. Interest matures into respect, and respect ultimately transforms into influence. Let's imagine a scenario where someone asks about your plans for the weekend. The average person says, "Oh, I'm just staying home, probably going to binge watch some movies." That is total transparency, but it is also completely forgettable. Instead, you could say, "I have a few important matters to attend to," and then gracefully shift the topic. Notice the shift in power. The first answer makes you predictable and mundane. The second answer makes you interesting and autonomous. This does not mean you should be rude or secretive about every little thing. It means being highly selective about what you share and the timing of when you share it. The most successful operators in any field have mastered this principle. They reveal just enough to keep the audience hooked, but never enough to surrender their advantage. Your information is your currency in this world. Do not spend it all in a single transaction. When you practice calculated opacity, people begin to pay closer attention to your words because they realize you do not speak idly. Your words carry more weight simply because they are rare. Remember, the goal isn't to be mysterious just for the sake of drama. The goal is to maintain absolute control over your narrative and your relationships. Number 2, adaptive persona. You're not the exact same person with everyone you meet. You must adjust your personality based entirely on who is standing in front of you. People may think they know you, but in reality they only know the specific version of you that you have chosen to reveal to them. Machiavelli advised that a leader ought to take care that he never lets anything slip from his lips that is not overflowing with virtuous qualities, so that he appears to those who see and hear him as entirely merciful, faithful, humane, upright, and religious. This is not about being fake. This is about being effective. You actually do this naturally already. You speak with a different tone and vocabulary to your grandmother than you do to your college friends. You behave differently in a high-stakes job interview than you do at a relaxed house party. You're simply presenting different facets of your multidimensional personality depending on the context. The concept of the adaptive persona takes this natural human tendency and makes it a deliberate strategy. Every single person you encounter possesses different values, different styles of communication, and different methods of processing information. If you utilize the exact same approach with every single person, you might connect with a few, but you will completely miss the mark with the rest. Truly intelligent people study the individual they are engaging with and calibrate their communication to match. Is the person analytical? Feed them logic, facts, and hard data. Are they driven by emotion? Connect with their feelings and sentiments. Are they practical? Demonstrate how things function mechanically. Are they big picture visionaries? Paint a compelling vision of the future. This is not manipulation. This is communication intelligence. Think of the nature of water. Water flawlessly takes the shape of whatever container holds it. Yet, it never loses its essential properties as water. It remains water whether it is in a delicate teacup, a plastic bottle, or a massive lake. Your adaptive persona functions in the same manner. You adjust your presentation to fit the vessel of the situation, but you never compromise your core values and principles. The mistake most people make is believing that authenticity means behaving identically in every scenario. But authenticity does not mean being a robot. It means being genuinely yourself while adapting your expression to be the most effective version of yourself for that moment. When you master the adaptive persona, you become a universal key that can unlock any door. People feel deeply understood in your presence because you are essentially speaking their native psychological language. This skill becomes exponentially powerful in negotiations, leadership roles, and relationship building. You're not forcing people to understand you. You're making it effortless for them to connect with you. However, here is a crucial warning. Never adapt so drastically that you lose your own soul. Your values, your integrity, and your core principles are non-negotiable. Only your presentation adapts. The strongest individuals are like diamonds. They possess many different facets that reflect light differently, yet they remain one unbreakable stone. Number 3, the principle of detachment. You must never become a slave to any relationship, any emotion, or any external opinion. What you're not afraid to lose can never control you. What cannot bind you cannot manipulate you. Machiavelli once stated that since love and fear can hardly exist together, if we must choose between them, it is far safer to be feared than loved. Detachment is perhaps the most widely misunderstood concept within the realm of dark intelligence. People mistakenly believe it means being cold, aloof, or uncaring. It does not. It means being free. The majority of people are puppets controlled by their attachments. They are terrified of losing their employment, so they accept degrading treatment. They are terrified of losing a relationship, so they compromise their self-respect. They are terrified of losing social approval, so they say what the crowd wants to hear rather than what is true. Fear of loss makes you weak. Freedom from that fear makes you formidable. This does not mean you should not care about anything. It means you should never be desperate for anything. Imagine this scenario. 2 individuals are negotiating a high-stakes business deal. Person A is desperate. They need this deal to survive. They're counting on it, and they have already mentally spent the money. Person B would prefer the deal to happen, but they have plenty of other options. They are perfectly willing to walk away if the terms do not favor them. Who holds the power? Person B, unequivocally. Because they are not emotionally attached to the specific outcome, they can negotiate from a position of absolute strength. Detachment provides you with crystal clarity. When you're not emotionally invested in the need to be right, you can assess situations objectively. When you're not starving for validation, you can make rational decisions. When you're not afraid of your own company, you can choose relationships based on quality rather than loneliness. The paradox is this: the less you strictly need something, the more likely you are to acquire it. Think about the most confident people you admire. They are not confident because life always goes their way. They're confident because they know they will be perfectly fine even if things go wrong. That is the supreme power of detachment. Again, this is not an excuse for carelessness or indifference. You should strive for your goals and care deeply for your loved ones, but you must never be so attached to a specific outcome that you lose your ability to think strategically. Detachment shields you from manipulation. When someone tries to threaten you by taking away something you're not afraid to lose, their threat evaporates into thin air. The most dangerous person in any room is the one with nothing to lose. But the most powerful person is the one who has everything to gain but absolutely nothing to fear. Start practicing this in small ways. Do not be attached to winning every petty argument. Do not be attached to being liked by every stranger. As you develop this muscle, you will notice a shift. People will treat you with heightened respect because they sense you cannot be easily controlled. Remember, detachment is caring without being enslaved by that care. Number 4, silent leverage. You do not apply pressure directly, you wait. When others make mistakes and expose their vulnerabilities, your silent presence becomes the heaviest and most influential force in the room. Machiavelli noted that never was anything great achieved without danger. Most people operate under the delusion that power is loud. They believe it is about shouting, making demands, and forcing their will upon the world. That is amateur behavior. Real power whispers. Silent leverage is the art of generating influence without uttering a single syllable. It is about positioning yourself so that your mere presence shifts the dynamic of the situation. Instead of barking orders, you create an environment where people naturally desire to do what benefits you. Instead of demanding respect, you make yourself so indispensable that respect is the only logical response. Instead of fighting for power, you cultivate an aura that makes people willingly hand it to you. Let's break this down. In conversation, silent leverage means mastering the pause. Most people are terrified of silence. They rush to fill it with nervous chatter. Often, that chatter reveals far more than they intended. When you are comfortable sitting in silence, you control the rhythm. The next time you're asked a difficult question, do not answer immediately. Pause. Look at them with a thoughtful expression. Let the silence stretch for 3 or 4 seconds, then deliver your answer. Watch how that silence amplifies the weight of your words. In negotiations, silent leverage implies having alternatives you never need to vocalize. When the other party knows you have options, the dynamic changes. You don't need to threaten to leave. The fact that you can is enough. In relationships, it means being the person who adds immense value without begging for credit. When you consistently improve the lives of others, they will fight to keep you around. In professional settings, it means becoming the person everyone quietly turns to for solutions. You don't announce you are the fixer, you just fix things until your competence is undeniable. The key ingredient here is patience. You're not hunting for instant gratification, you're building long-term influence. While the masses chase quick wins, you plant seeds and wait. You make investments and wait for the dividends. This requires a mindset shift toward delayed gratification. What happens when you master this? People seek your advice unprompted. They seek your approval without you demanding it. You become the invisible gravity that shapes the outcome. Ethically, silent leverage must never be used to manipulate people into self-harm. The goal is a win-win where everyone rises. The most ethical use is guiding people toward better decisions. You're not tricking them, you're steering the ship quietly. Silent leverage is not passive behavior. You're taking action, but you're doing it with strategic subtlety rather than loud ineptitude. Number 5, psychological echo. You reflect people's deepest needs and fears back to them. They believe you're speaking their language, but in reality, you are gaining deep understanding and influence. Machiavelli observed that men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand. For everyone can see, but few can feel. Everyone sees the facade, but few know the reality. Psychological echo is the practice of becoming a mirror that reflects what people desperately need to see and hear. This is not deception. It is profound empathy and strategic communication. People do not buy products or ideas, they buy solutions to their pain and fulfillment for their desires. When you identify and reflect their true needs, you become invaluable. Most people fail at this because they are obsessed with what they want to say, rather than what the other person needs to hear. To make this work, you must become a student of human nature. Everyone is carrying invisible burdens and secret desires. Your task is to listen for the clues. When someone discusses their career, they aren't just sharing data, they are revealing their self-image and their anxieties. When they talk about relationships, they are exposing their emotional patterns. You must listen to understand, not just to respond. Here is a framework. Every person is silently asking 3 questions. Do you see me? Do you understand me? Do you value me? If your words and actions answer yes to all 3, you forge a bond of steel. The psychological echo involves reflecting back not just the words, but the meaning. You listen for the emotion beneath the surface. For instance, if someone says, "I hate my job," the average response is, "You should quit." But if you listen deeper, you hear a lack of appreciation or boredom. A psychological echo response would be, "It sounds like you don't feel valued for the hard work you put in," or perhaps you are ready for a challenge that actually utilizes your skills. Notice the shift. You're validating their emotional experience. This makes them feel deeply understood, creating trust. The key is to reflect the positive version of their expression. If they complain about being overwhelmed, reflect back their dedication to high standards. If they are frustrated, reflect back their desire for excellence. People have a primal need to feel understood. When you give them that, they value your opinion above others. Once you understand their core drives, you can position your ideas to match their needs. If they value security, frame your idea as safe and stable. If they value recognition, frame it as a path to achievement. You aren't changing the message. You're tailoring the delivery to their psychological profile. This is potent in leadership and relationships. Ethically, use this to genuinely understand and help others. When used to serve the best interests of others, psychological echo builds unbreakable relationships. Number 6. Ambiguous morality. You are neither purely good nor purely bad. You simply get things done. Real power does not always exist in black and white. Sometimes it thrives in the grey areas. Machiavelli noted that since it is difficult to join love and fear, it is safer to be feared when one must be missing. This is the most controversial trait of dark intelligence, and easily the most misunderstood. Let me be precise. Ambiguous morality does not mean having no morals. It does not mean being a sociopath who hurts people for fun. It means understanding that the real world is messy. Sometimes doing the nice thing in the short term leads to disaster in the long term. Sometimes being polite enables toxicity. Sometimes protecting the group requires making an ugly decision. Pure moral clarity is a luxury that effective people cannot always afford when dealing with complex consequences. Consider a leader who discovers a team member is lying to clients. The nice thing is to give another chance, but what about the honest team members? What about the deceived clients? Someone with ambiguous morality realizes that protecting the collective is more important than being nice to the liar. They might make the hard choice to fire that person. This isn't cruelty, it is pragmatic ethics. Or imagine a friend asks for advice on a toxic relationship. The kind thing is to just be supportive, but ambiguous morality dictates that true kindness is telling the hard truth, even if it hurts their feelings temporarily. The principle is focusing on outcomes rather than appearances. Sometimes the action that looks harsh creates the best result. This requires a shift in thinking. Instead of asking, "What makes me look like a good person?" you ask, "What leads to the best outcome for everyone?" This requires taking responsibility for difficult decisions. Crucially, ambiguous morality is not selfishness. You aren't doing what benefits you at the expense of others. You're making pragmatic choices for the greater good, even if those choices are unpopular. You adapt to the context. Total honesty might be right for a spouse, but strategic withholding might be necessary in a hostile negotiation. The danger is using this to justify bad behavior. Therefore, you must have clear boundaries. What lines will you never cross? Establish your non-negotiables. Within those bounds, give yourself permission to be pragmatic. The goal isn't to be liked. The goal is to be effective and ethical in a complex world where simple answers fail. Number 7. Controlled exposure. You do not reveal everything about yourself. The less people know, the more they assume, and assumptions lead to mistakes that make your strategy easier to execute. Machiavelli said that men are so simple and dominated by immediate needs that a deceiver will always find someone ready to be deceived. In an era of social media oversharing, controlled exposure seems counterintuitive, yet it is more powerful than ever. When everyone is screaming their business, the quiet person stands out. Controlled exposure is about being intentional with your personal data. It is understanding that selective sharing strengthens influence. Humans are curious animals. When we see gaps, we try to fill them. This is the curiosity gap. By holding back, you make people lean in. Think of the most captivating icons. They leave you wanting more. This is strategic. Professionally, this means not showing all your cards at once. Don't reveal every skill you have in week 1. Reveal them gradually. This creates the perception of constant growth rather than someone who peaked early. Socially, it means not dumping your trauma on strangers. Build trust first. In negotiations, keep your constraints and priorities hidden until the right moment. The rule is, information revealed can never be unrevealed. Err on the side of silence. It is also about timing. Revealing an achievement too early looks like bragging. Revealing it when it solves a problem looks like humility. You must also tailor your disclosure to the audience. Your partner knows more than your boss knows more than your competitor. This isn't being fake, it's being appropriate. And remember your digital footprint. Smart people cultivate their online persona strategically. The goal is to maintain control over your narrative. You want to share enough to connect, but not enough to lose your advantage. Be open and genuine, but be the gatekeeper of your own life. Number 8. Outcome obsession. You're not here to win arguments or prove points. You're here to get results. People who focus solely on outcomes never waste time on ego games. Machiavelli stated that the promise given was a necessity of the past, but the broken word is a necessity of the present. This trait separates amateurs from professionals. Most people are distracted by vanity. They want to be right. They want to look good. They want to feel validated. Outcome obsession cuts through that noise. You ask different questions. Instead of, how do I prove I'm right? You ask, what result am I trying to achieve? Instead of, how do I look smart? You ask, what action gets me to the goal? This shifts everything. In an argument, most people try to win the debate. Outcome-obsessed people ask, what is the goal? If the goal is to change behavior, proving the other person wrong usually fails because it triggers defensiveness. A better approach is guiding them to the conclusion. If the goal is a relationship, being right matters less than finding a solution. In business, this means focusing on what moves the needle, not what makes you look busy. It means choosing impact over visibility. In personal growth, it means measuring progress by results, not effort. This leads to strategic laziness. Outcome-obsessed people often look like they do less because they ignore the 80% of work that doesn't matter. They focus purely on the 20% that drives results. They are not trying to be the hardest worker. They are trying to be the most effective one. They ask, what is the minimum effective dose to achieve the maximum result? Warning, outcome obsession becomes destructive if you sacrifice values. You must remain ethical. Your desired outcome should include maintaining your integrity. Also, be willing to change course. Do not be stubborn about your methods, only your goals. If a strategy fails, drop it. Be like water. The ultimate goal is to be someone who actually gets things done in the real world. This reputation is gold. When you are known as a closer, opportunities flow to you. You have just learned the 8 traits of dark intelligence. But knowledge without application is merely entertainment. Pick the one trait that resonated most with you. For the next 7 days, practice that single trait in your daily life. Do not try to juggle all 8. Focus on one. Observe how the world responds to you. Notice how you feel when you replace emotional reactivity with strategic intelligence. Remember the code. This power comes with heavy responsibility. Use these insights to shield yourself, not to wound others. Use them to architect better outcomes for everyone. The world is desperate for strategically intelligent people who act ethically. People who can see through the fog of manipulation and protect the vulnerable. That is the true mandate of dark intelligence. It is not to become a manipulator, but to become incorruptible. It is not to gain power over others, but to gain absolute mastery over yourself. The most dangerous person is the one with nothing to lose, but the most valuable person is the one who understands the human mind and uses that wisdom to elevate the world. Which path will you choose? If this video shifted your perspective on power and psychology, destroy that like button. If you crave more content on high-level strategy, human behavior, and the psychology of power, subscribe to Psych Solace and ring the notification bell. Drop a comment below. Which of these 8 traits do you recognize in the most successful people you know, and which one are you committing to practice this week? Until next time, remember that true intelligence is not just about being smart. It is about being wise enough to use your mind in service of something greater. Stay strategic, stay ethical, stay powerful,